Hello, my astounding Algebra 1 students. Let's have another summer adventure together. Today, we will find the slope of the line through the pair of points. Let's review how different slopes and different lines look in an XY plane. When we're in the XY plane, we're going to always be moving from left to right. If the line is going up, it's increasing, we're going to have a positive slope. Remember, M is the symbol for slope, and it's going to be greater than 0. As we move from left to right, we're going down. The slope is going to be negative, and M is less than 0. Here, when we have a horizontal line, you're not going up or down, so the slope is going to be 0 for horizontal line. Here, we have a vertical line. Vertical line has an undefined slope. Like we're not spider people. We can't just walk up the wall. Let's look at some definitions for slope. It's the vertical change divided by the horizontal change. It's the y sub 2 minus y sub 1, which is called the change in y or delta y, divided by y sub 2 minus y sub 1, which is called the change in x, or simply delta x. We're going to be using the formula y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Let's also review our quadrants. In quadrant 1, both the x and y are positive. In quadrant 2, the x is negative and the y is positive. In quadrant 3, both the x and the y are negative. And in quadrant 4, the x is positive and the y is negative. We're going to be plotting 3 sets, pairs of points, and we're going to plot and connect the points, label the points, x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. Then we're going to determine the slope of the line passing through the 2 given points using the slope formula. And the first example that we're going to look at, we're going to be given the points negative 8, 3 and 4, negative 2. I draw my xy axis, I plot my points, negative 8, 3, 4, negative 2, I connect them. Then I'm going to label the points, x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. Now, you could have labeled this first pair of points, the x sub 2, y sub 2, and the second pair, x sub 1, y sub 1. It's your preference as to how you're going to label them. I'm now going to use my slope formula. And I'm going to substitute. My y sub 2 is negative 2. Put my minus sign immediately. My y sub 1, which is 3, over my x sub 2, which is 4, immediately put my minus sign. My x sub 1, which is negative 8. A double negative means it is positive. So we have negative 5 divided by 12, and that is our slope. This is saying that the change in y is a negative 5, the change in x is 12. Every time we add a negative 5 to the y, we're going to add a 12 to the x. Let us review the signs of a fraction. There are 3 signs when you're talking about a fraction. Notice here that the negative sign is parallel to the fraction bar, but the numerator and denominator are positive. Here, the parallel fraction bar has a positive sign and the denominator has a positive sign, but the numerator has a negative sign. Here, the sign parallel to the fraction bar is positive, the numerator has a positive sign, and the denominator has a negative sign. This is basically how we would read this. You see you have a negative fraction. You can have the negative sign parallel to the fraction bar, or you can have the negative sign in the numerator, or we can have the negative sign in the denominator. Now I'm going to use that because I want to show you something. We're going to be given a slope and a point on a line. We can find an infinite number of points on the line. So here's our slope. Here's our point. Here's the point we're using. And again, this slope says every time we add a negative 5 to the y, we're going to add a 12 to the x. So add a negative 5 to the x, excuse me, a negative 5 to the y, and then I add a 12 to the x. So we're going to get 4, negative 2. And notice that is a point that we already knew that was on the line. You see, I started off with a negative 8, 3. I use my change in y divided by my change in x, and I got another point. If I were to take this point, and if I were to add the -5 here and the negative and the positive 12 here, I would get another point. Notice I'm getting points going down the line. Let's look at this again. The same slope, but I've written, you see, this time where I have the denominator, the change in the x being the -12. And here's the point. So again, this slope says every time I add 5 to the y, I must add a -12 to the x. Again, when I add 5 to the y, when I add a -12 to the x. So I come down here, I add 5 to the y, -12 to the x, and I get the point -8, 3. And let's go back to this problem again. Here, I started with this point, 4, -2. I did my change in x and my change in y, and I got this point. So again, when I add a -5 to the y and a positive 12 to the x, I will be getting what we have here, which is -8, 3, and I could keep going up the line. So when I change the sign in the numerator and denominator, I can either go up the line or down the line. That's the purpose of that. Let's look at the second example. Here we have our 2 points. We're going to draw an XY plane. We're going to plot the points. 6, -5, 6, -10. We're going to label the points. X sub 1, Y sub 1, X sub 2, Y sub 2. We're going to use our slope formula. Then we're going to do our substitution. Y sub 2 is -10. Put your minus sign. Y sub 1 is -5. X sub 2 is 6. X sub 1 is 6. -5 plus 5, -5. 6 minus 6, 0. Division by 0 is undefined. So we have a slope that's undefined, and we have a vertical line where the slope is undefined. Let's look at a third example. Here, let me move this so you can see it. Here we have our 2 points. 2, -4, -4, -1. We draw our XY plane. We plot our points. 2, -4, -1, -4. We connect the dots. We have here a horizontal line. And we label our points, X sub 1, Y sub 1, X sub 2, Y sub 2. We're going to use our slope formula to do our substitution. Y sub 2 is -4. Immediately put our minus sign. Y sub 1 is -4. X sub 2 is -1. Minus, put the minus sign. X sub 1 is 2. -1 minus 2 is -3. Remember, double negative is positive. -4 plus 4 is 0. 0 divided by 3 is 0. So we have a horizontal line. The slope is 0. Remember, we have a horizontal line. And as you are viewing this video, remember to stop, rewind, review. Stop, rewind, review until you understand what is being demonstrated for you. Thanks for viewing this video.